Remember that old saying, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise? Well, forget about it when it comes to teenagers. We'll tell you why right now on Keeping Kids Healthy. Hi, I'm Dr. Winnie King, and I'm coming to you from the lobby of the Children's Hospital at Montefiore in New York City. So you can expect to hear a little noise in the background. That's all part of the environment here. If it's difficult for your teen to drag himself out of bed in the morning, he's not alone. Most teens are chronically sleep deprived, and that's not just an annoyance. It has serious consequences for their school performance and for their safety. In fact, it can cost them their lives. Jim Bunn has the story.
You'd miss it if you weren't paying attention. It's called Macks Creek, population 267. Right there, just off State Highway 54. Tucked into the foothills of southwestern Missouri, Macks Creek was home to Rusty Burris and to Courtney Deckard. They didn't know each other, and they never will. Because when they grew up, each one fell asleep at the wheel of the car they were driving. One is dead, the other paralyzed, and Macks Creek will never be the same.
There was a knock on the door about midnight.
She was supposed to be home at 11 o'clock that night.
Rusty was laying in the highway.
I said, God, please don't let it be her.
They told us that he was not going to make it.
That was my little girl.
I don't remember getting in the car. I don't remember the drive.
I was screaming, I want my little girl. I want Courtney.
I don't remember the crash.
You might think that accidents like this are more common to an area like Macks Creek, Missouri, with long stretches of rural roads and monotonous drives. But in cities and towns across the country every year, 100,000 accidents are caused by people who fall asleep at the wheel. Half of those drivers
are young adults.
Just weeks before the crash, Rusty graduated from high school. A month after the crash, he woke up in the hospital.
It was a nurse who had told me what had happened and about my spinal cord injury and how my life was going to change from that point on. I just stared straight at the ceiling, and it was the hardest thing that I'd ever heard.
Now in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, Rusty speaks to school kids and other groups with a simple message.
Everybody thinks, well, when they're tired, they can turn on the radio, they can roll the window down. What I tell them is that when they're tired, to pull over, because I tried all those other things, and it was just a 30-minute drive, and I fell asleep 90 seconds from home.
Courtney Deckard, too, was just seconds away from her destination when she fell asleep at the wheel.
We were always constantly telling her to be careful, and if you get tired, pull over, call us, we'll come and get you. Just be careful. And she said, it's okay, Dad, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't.
But it wasn't.
1,500 people came to Tiny Macks Creek to mourn Courtney's death. A year later, her parents still struggle with the last time they saw her.
I hollered at her through the door that I was leaving, and I told her I loved her. And she said, I love you too. And I said, I'll see you tonight. And that's the last thing I got to say to her. I never got to see her anymore.
I had to leave before she got out of school that day, but she did call me. And
you could set me in the middle of the highway, run over me with an 18-wheeler, and nothing will hurt me as bad as losing Courtney.
This may sound like an odd question. You've been very gracious to let us into your house. Why are you doing this with us?
if it can save one life.
And if it can help one parent to deal with the pain.
Well,
or to stop it before it happens.
Yes.
Hi, sis.
What a devastating story. And of course, if we're going to stop this, we have to get the word out to the teenagers as well as their parents. Leon Williams is a state trooper who does just that by visiting the schools. And Dr. Jody Mendel is a sleep specialist at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And I have to tell you, I have some real strong personal feelings about this because when I was a young medical student, going to school back and forth every day, staying up late, going to the library, I fell asleep at the wheel. And I woke up about a week later in an intensive care unit with a lot of broken bones. I had to learn how to walk all over again. It cost me a year of my life, of schooling. And I'm just grateful I never hurt anyone else. It was just myself that got injured. But it's really hard to watch this because I know all too well how painful this is, not only for the individuals involved, but for their families and for those individuals that end up getting hurt. And this is such an important topic that we talk about. It's critical that we do it. You know, Jody, I didn't realize that this whole issue of drowsy drivers was such a big problem.
Yeah, we're starting to recognize it. I mean, we know about drunk driving, but drowsy driving is just as dangerous, in some cases more. You're more likely to die in a drowsy driving accident because you fall asleep. So you're going to hit that tree going full speed. The other thing is just driving drowsy. Your reaction time slows, your vigilance, so you don't see that kid who runs out between cars. The other thing about drowsy driving occurs at 2 times, mostly. Peaks between 3 and 4 in the morning, like you and I would expect, but also peaks around 3 or 4 in the afternoon when teens are driving home from school.
That's an interesting time, and I'm sure most people don't think of that. And there's a lot of kids on the road. A lot of children can get injured. Now, Leon, when you go to the schools and talk to kids, do they take you seriously about this?
The vast majority of the time when I'm at the various schools speaking with the teenagers or college kids, they think that it's impossible for them to happen to them because they feel that they're of a young age and that they are aware of everything that's happening with them.
Sure.
So the answer for that would be no.
Okay, so how do you get through? How do you get their attention?
I go into personal experience that I've had involving driving while drowsy that was related to when I was in the military.
Really? And what happened with you?
What happened was I had been doing maneuvers for approximately 2 or 3 days, and I decided to visit a friend in St. Louis, Missouri. It was late night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm driving, and all of a sudden, I recall the car hitting rumble strips. That jarred me awake, and in a panic, I veered across the roadway, 3 lanes. Luckily, I avoided all oncoming traffic, struck the embankment, and overcompensated, came back across the highway.
Wow. And you know, you and I were talking about this earlier. When that moment hits you, when your body turns off, there isn't anything you can do about it. You can't feel it coming. You don't know, oh, I better pull off. When your body says, okay, we're out of juice, and you just completely stop and you completely shut down. Well, there are steps that parents can take to prevent this kind of tragedy, and we'll tell you about them in just a few minutes. But first, it's really critical to understand why kids are so tired and what the whole range of consequences is. And Jody, why are kids so sleep deprived these days?
First of all, we know that teenagers need 9.25 hours of sleep. Studies show that. They're getting 7 hours, so every night they're losing about 2 hours of sleep. And what is also interesting that happens is there's a shift in their internal clock by about 2 hours as they develop. Whereas after puberty, they shift. So instead of going to bed at 9, they're going to bed at 11. Same time, high school start times are earlier, so they're being forced to wake up earlier.
Right.
So they're losing 2 hours of sleep, and their heads are still on the pillows, even though they're leisurely in the classroom.
These poor kids are getting up, at the crack of dawn now, going to school.
It's unbelievable.
And it really does affect them. I mean, what kind of problems does this exhaustion lead to in kids?
We know it affects their mood. They're irritable, they're cranky, they have a hard time regulating their emotions, so they get more upset than they normally would. It affects their cognitive functioning. Decision making, creativity, memory, attention span, all the things that are important in school. Yeah. It also affects their behavior. Drowsy driving, being non-compliant, being argumentative, and finally it really affects families. For families, it's a very difficult issue, especially getting that teen up in the morning.
Yeah. Well, the irritability, I'm sure, is important for parents to hear about because most teens are irritable to begin with, and they're combative, they're difficult. And so the idea that maybe this has something to do with sleep deprivation is probably a novel idea. So it's something to really think about. Well, fortunately, not all families are faced with the kinds of devastating consequences of sleep deprivation that we saw earlier, but virtually everyone who has a teen has had to deal with that morning irritability. Now, we used our hidden camera to record that all too common scene, which is played out all across America every day.
Andrew, time to look up. Come on, you've got a science review this morning. Andrew. Okay, sweetie, it's time to get up. Come on. I know. Andrew, come on, hon, it's time to get going. It's after 7. Come on, you're going to be late for the review.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure almost everyone with a teen recognizes a little bit of their kid in that video. But is it really fair, Jody, for parents to blame their teens completely, like Andrew, for the irritability?
No, I mean, they are not getting enough sleep. So, of course, they're going to be cranky in the morning and really hard to get up. If I tried to get you up at 4 o'clock in the morning, you'd be cranky too.
Good luck, because there was a time when I used to have to get up at 4 in the morning when I was on surgery rounds. And let me tell you, it was painful. So, and I was an adult then. So for young kids, I'm sure it's probably pretty tough.
Right, and and you have to understand how much sleep they really need. And teens think they need less sleep than everybody else, and that's a belief even parents have.
Well, I think also because teenagers see their parents going to bed later, they think, well, that's a sign of getting to be an adult.
Right.
And so I'm going to stay up late like my mom and dad, but they don't realize, and the parents also may not realize, that that's not the right thing for them at that particular moment in their lives. They still need the extra time.
Exactly, and I have to say the parents need the sleep too. By parents staying up till midnight, it's also causing problems for them.
Well, what are the schools doing about this?
You know, schools have really started to take a lead in this. It started in Edina, Minnesota in 1996. They moved their high school start time later. Ever since then, now about 45 school districts have either changed their high school start time or have considered it. It's really become a major sort of groundswell.
Yeah, and you know what? To help teens in Wilton, Connecticut get more sleep, Wilton High School took the step of moving its start time 40 minutes later from 7:35 in the morning to 8:15. Now, for sophomore Alex Stevenson, it improved not only his mornings, but his whole day. Let's see how much more pleasant it is than Andrew's day right from the start.
Morning, buddy. Morning, Al. Time to get up.
Alex's wake-up call now comes at 7 a.m., a full 45 minutes later than last year.
Now I can wake up and feel more awake, be able to get dressed, go downstairs, have some breakfast, talk with my parents and my brother.
Last year he would just be lying on the table, really with his eyes closed, trying to get lots of minutes of sleep, and whenever I got near him he would just groan and tell me to get away. This year he's actually sitting upright and he's not groaning as much, he's actually talking, and I'm allowed to sit next to him.
Bye, Mom. Bye.
Have a good day.
Good morning.
In addition to improving Alex's relationship with his brother, getting more sleep has made first period much less painful.
You don't feel tired, you feel like you've fully woken up and you're prepared to pay attention in class.
What's K? 6. Last year when I had Alex first period, he seemed to be maybe not so interested, not so alert, not so aware. This year he sits in the front row, practically the front row, very often willing to participate, just generally seems to be more alert to what's going on in the classroom.
Alex isn't the only one who is more alert. Barbara Klein is his English teacher.
As I look out at my first period class, I perceive a real difference. They are not as tired as they were.
And that has improved not only the students' moods, but the teachers' too.
I would just say it's much more relaxed in the morning, and I feel calmer. I think the students feel a little calmer in the morning and just more ready to tackle the day ahead.
So, Alex, how else has this whole thing with pushing the start back time changed your life?
Well, last year with the early start times, my grades were not extraordinary.
Oh, now that is a very nice way of saying that. Not extraordinary. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. And now?
This year, I actually made the honor roll for the first time last quarter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, what else has happened to you?
Well, before I would never eat breakfast in the morning. I would have a 2-meal-a-day diet. Yeah. This year, a couple times a week, I'm able to get up, have enough time to grab a bagel or something to eat.
Yeah. And how does it feel when you actually go to school with your tummy full? Do you feel better?
Makes me more attentive in the morning, first period. I mean, I have some protein or carbohydrates in my body so I can stay awake.
Yeah. And what about on the weekends? Do you get a little extra sleep then?
Well, last year I'd sleep to 10:30, 10 o'clock on the weekends. But this year, surprised myself, I'm up sometimes before 9.
Really? And you think it's because you're able to get a little bit more sleep during the week?
Yes.
So it makes life a little bit easier for you on the weekends?
Yes.
Well, Diane is Alex's mom. And tell us, Diane, how has this affected your entire family life?
I was originally skeptical that 40 minutes would make that much difference. But I've actually rediscovered a human being behind my previously very cranky teenager.
I can't imagine that. You don't look like you were ever cranky.
And I would say in the morning we actually have time for civil conversation.
Yeah.
We talk about the events of the day. We have maybe even time for an encouraging word or two. And I think we actually kind of like each other a little better.
Yeah.
That can't be a bad thing.
That can't be a bad thing at all. Well, now, are there some drawbacks, though, to starting later?
Well, drawbacks are, like me, most kids play sports after school. And, I mean, with the later start time comes the later ending time.
Yeah.
So sports, if you have a game, you have to miss last period. You have an away game, and that can hurt academic-wise in the afternoon.
Sure.
Also, it takes away time to do homework in the afternoon, eat dinner with your family, have some downtime. And there's the one drawback from school time.
You know, sports have been one of the biggest detriments to schools changing their high school start time.
Right.
But what a lot of them are doing is for varsity athletes, making gym their last period, so
they
they're
can
not
then do the
losing
sports for
academics.
gym. Oh, that's a great idea. Well, you know, there definitely are drawbacks to this change. You know, for example, some parents say that starting and ending the day later means the kids have less time for after-school jobs and therefore less money for college. So, I mean, it does have some significant impacts.
Really, it's a choice of, do I do the work so that I have the grades to get into college, or do I work to have the money to be able to pay for it?
There are friends of mine in town who are working, and it's much more difficult for them because they did rely on some child care from the older students who got home earlier.
You now have a 3rd to 5th grader coming home before the high schooler, and they're simply not old enough to stay home on their own and take care of themselves.
Well, you know, what have the results been in other school districts where they have changed the start times for schools?
Well, there have been some studies now, which is great. So Edina, Minnesota, they did a great job studying this. They found things like that teen depression has decreased, which relates to sleep deprivation. They found that absenteeism has decreased. They also found that students who were changing schools, that has decreased dramatically. Usually students change schools when they're failing. And so they really believe that they're now performing better. In Fayette, Kentucky, they found drowsy driving has dramatically decreased since they changed the high school start time.
Just something so simple as that, and I'm sure that has saved lives.
And it saved lives. I mean, I'm sure it can reflect that. One of the big questions was, well, will the teens just go to bed later? And that's not happening. And that's important to really push, that to understand they are getting more sleep.
Yeah. Well, we're going to go through some of the things that parents can do to help their teens get started and to get more sleep. But Diane, you were making a comment just a moment ago about the parents and the impact of the delayed starting of school and ending of school on them. You feel as if in a lot of ways this affects their ability to make an income.
Yes, exactly, because actually last year I depended on my older kids to watch my younger son when he came home. So I was originally concerned about other people who had that problem.
Sure.
And so it's an issue.
Well, a lot of times the older child is the one who comes home and takes care of the younger kids.
Exactly.
And so when they're not there, then that means now you've got to find a babysitter. So, I mean, it just really kind of speaks to how complex this very simple little change in the schedule can be on families. But let's go through, Jody, some of the things that parents can do to help their own children, their teens, get as much sleep as possible.
So teens need to keep a regular schedule. Go to bed the same time every night, wake up the same time in the morning. If you're going to stay up late on the weekends, do it one night. Okay? Don't sleep in on weekends. A teen who sleeps till noon or 1 in the afternoon on a Sunday won't be able to go to bed at 10 o'clock that night. They haven't been awake enough hours to be able to go back
and
to
that's
sleep.
such a good point because it's such a common tendency for us to think, it's Saturday morning, I'm going to sleep in, I won't get up till noon, but that actually throws off your schedule.
It's like, someone here in New York going to Hawaii for the weekend. They jet lag themselves. Naps, right? If you're really sleepy, take a short 45-minute nap around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Bedtime, turn off those TVs, those computers, those radios for about an hour before you go to bed because it's going to energize you and interrupt your sleep. Caffeine, one of the big no-nos. Teens are drinking Mountain Dew, they're drinking many of the orange sodas. It's going to interrupt your sleep. Sun, in the morning, put those shades up, take off the sunglasses. Morning light is going to reset your clock. And the last thing is exercise. A lot of the teens are involved in sports. That's really critical for sleep.
Well, Alex, I can't believe it. I'm scared to say it. I know you don't want to say it either. It's about to drive soon. Yes. It's coming. And I know you can't wait to drive, right?
Can't wait.
You're so excited about driving, and I remember being his age and wanting to drive. I mean, you want a car, you want to drive, you want to go out with your friends. But Jody, what are some of the things that Diane can do, along with other parents with teens about Alex's age, to sort of keep them from dozing off while they're driving?
Well, first of all, parents need to talk to their kids about this. 60% of parents never even mention it, okay? If they're going to drive in the afternoon, get them to take a nap if they didn't get sleep the night before. Make sure before any driving you get a good night's sleep. Got to make sleep a priority here. Long trips, what should people do? They should have a companion at least. Better to have 3 people in the car. One in the back talking to the driver, one in the front napping, and that way you can really rotate.
And that's an important point, because when you've just got the one passenger in the front, the 2 of you are staring at the road, you both fall asleep.
Right, and you both fall asleep, and you both are getting that road, hypnosis.
Yeah. Right,
okay?
so the person in the back
should be the next one driving.
Oh, so you just rotate.
You rotate, literally rotate.
And how often should you be doing that? Every hour?
About every 2 hours or every 100 miles.
Oh,
you want to rotate or at least take a break.
Okay.
Another thing, if you're really sleepy, you want to pull off the road, okay? And take a cat nap. You also want to avoid alcohol, avoid medications.
Yeah, well, the pulling off the road is a good idea. And Leon, I want to get your comments about this, but I have treated a lot of people in the emergency room who pulled off the road because they pulled off the road and they got out of their car and they got hit by a car that was coming along. So, but pulling off the road, what do you suggest that they do to do it in a way that's safe?
Well, if at all possible, we recommend first and foremost a rest area. Now, depending on where you're traveling, if you know it's going to be a long distance, try and map out those rest areas that will be posted for you there. Jody mentioned the medications.
Yeah.
That's something you want to avoid, especially this time of year. It's the cold season. Over-the-counter medications, a lot of them have a very high alcohol content. And that's going to add to your sleepiness.
Right. And there are many products on the market that have it. And the thing to do is to read the label, because it says right on the label, do not operate machinery, and a car operates as a machine, don't take this medication if you have other medical problems. But often, and they're required by law to put on the label that there is a risk for becoming drowsy when you take these medications. So take advantage of that, because a lot of us don't realize that these medications can cause drowsiness, and it sort of creeps up on you. And after about a half hour, all of a sudden you're tired and you're in the middle of your trip and you want to get home and you think you're going to make it, and that's when there's disaster. Now, Jody, what are some of the things that drivers do wrong that they shouldn't do to try and stay awake that get them in trouble?
Right, we all open the window, we turn up the radio, we chew gum. None of those things are going to work. When you are sleepy, literally the only thing that works is sleep.
Yeah, you've got to get that rest, and I can tell you from personal experience that if you don't get it, your body is definitely going to shut down on you.
Right. So, what things you should look for? How do you know you're sleepy? Because we're not very good at it. If you're blinking, if your eyes are drifting, that's our #1 indicator. Yawning, okay? All of a sudden, blanking out the last few miles, and also drifting from your lane. Most fall asleep accidents are drifting off from your lane. Right.
Drifting from your lane. That brings us back full circle to what happened to Courtney Deckard and Rusty Burris in Missouri, and also to a teenager in Kansas named Justin Daly. Now, unlike Courtney, Justin lived to tell us about it, but his best friend Todd in the passenger seat didn't make it, and Justin is now in a wheelchair. He wanted the chance to tell you what he learned that day, so he asked his friend to videotape him. Here's his message.
When you're a teenager, you feel indestructible and you don't think anything can happen to you, because I know I thought that before I had my accident, and the next thing I know, I'm driving home one night late and I wake up in a hospital. So it's important to, that teenagers try to keep themselves in check and not just go, and try to keep up with society's demands to, be the perfect student or the perfect child. And sometimes tragedy can happen when you're not paying attention. So speak with your children and let them, ask them how they're doing, how they feel. Are they tired? And make sure if they can't keep themselves in check that you as parents try to help them do that instead of just go. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I'm not an expert, so I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts and opinions with this, and thank you for your time.
Who could be more of an expert than you? Thank you so much, Justin. I want to give you guys an opportunity, Jody and Leon, to tell our viewers what you've learned about this whole issue of sleep deprivation. What would be the most important tip you'd want them to take away from this?
First and foremost will be getting plenty of rest. But if you can't and you're still forced to drive, stop. Take that nap alongside the road. It is nothing wrong with doing that, and it is not illegal. If you feel uncomfortable being parked alongside the road, exit. The coffee shops, the mall, any place where there's a lot of people, pull over there and take that 30 to 40 minute nap time.
Just a few seconds can make all the difference. Jody, how about you?
And you know, you got to make sleep a family priority. Everyone in the family, not just the teens, need enough sleep. And you want parents to be a model of good sleep habits. It's all a balance in life, but sleep's got to be right up there with all the other things.
That's right. Great advice. You know, to find out more about how you can help your teen be more awake, visit the National Sleep Foundation website at sleepfoundation.org. And to learn more about preventing drowsy driving, go to drowsydriving.org. Thank you so much for being here, and good luck behind that wheel. You take care of yourself, okay? Drive awake and drive safely. Thank you guys so much for being here, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Keeping Kids Healthy. Have you picked out your
Keeping Kids Healthy is available on home video for $14.95 plus shipping and handling. To order your copy, call 800-357-5742 or order online at www.keepingkidshealthy.org.